I'm back for one final segment with Dr. Timothy Ball, a global warming skeptic. He's chairman of the National Resources Stewardship Project. He was for 25 years professor of climatology at the University of Winnipeg. Dr. Ball, let me put it this way. Is it immoral to buy a Hummer?
If you're concerned about pollution, yes. But if you're concerned about global warming and climate change, no.
So, you're saying if we're measuring pollutants, then vehicles that pollute, then let's stop that.
Absolutely.
But if you're talking about CO2 emissions, it makes no difference at all.
Makes no difference. And in fact, what's interesting is that even if you doubled the CO2 in the atmosphere from the current 385, the temperature can only go up a certain amount, and it's only about 1.5 degrees. There's some debate about that number. And the reason for that is that the CO2, it's like if you got a window and you want to block sunlight, you paint it with black paint. That reduces almost all of the sunlight. The second coat has hardly any effect. So as the CO2 level goes up, the temperature doesn't increase. What they've done in the computer models to get around that is they've said, oh, well, the temperature will go up because of CO2. That'll cause more water vapor, and that will therefore raise the temperature. But they don't talk about water vapor in other places.
As one of the primary things.
As one of the primary things. CO2 is less than 4% of the greenhouse gases. Water vapor is 95% of the greenhouse gases by volume, never gets mentioned.
So you're saying if my car can run on CO2 emissions but doesn't pollute, you'd love that. They'd be
Absolutely.
But isn't that the problem, though, is that the only energy that we seem to be using currently as human beings is primarily polluting CO2 emitting? So you're saying, oh, I'm okay with CO2, but I'm bad with pollution. But they're linked. How can you pull them apart?
Okay, well, you can pull them apart very easily with technology. I mean, you can burn coal absolutely clean. Mr. Murray, with the Ohio Coal Company in the U.S., built, with his own money, a clean-burning coal plant in North Dakota. But the energy that it produces is twice the cost. And of course, any politician that brings in that doubles the cost of energy, remember my earlier comment, they're out of office in a minute. The public say they want these things cleaned up, but they, start with my neighbor first. Oh, don't put any cost of it on me. So, yeah, and at NRSP, of course, what we're trying to say is, with all of these alternate energies, like ethanol, for example, all very nice, but take the government subsidies out of it, and it doesn't work.
So just making lots of corn and...
Making lots of corn, and we're already seeing the side effect with the price of corn going up in Mexico and the people being harmed. So what we're trying to say at NRSP is, look, stop the hysteria, take the fear out of it, get all of the evidence on the table.
And try to clean up the planet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, the planet's in better shape than you would they'd have you believe.
Okay.
And in fact, a study was done about 8 years ago with 100 scientists, and they said that 54% of the planet is in pristine condition. But you don't hear the good news. All you hear is the bad news. So it's like they're taking Randall and they're finding one wart on Randall and saying, this is Randall.
The whole thing.
You know, the guy's a wart.
Maybe I am. I don't know. What's your belief about the planet? I mean, do you have any kind of spiritual belief that undergirds your passion for this topic? Do you believe the planet is sacred? Is it important? Is it something we need to, kind of tend to? Or is it just a bunch of resources to use up?
No, and there are differing views on the planet.
Yeah.
And the best analogy I can give you is farmers.
Okay.
Farmers are accused of all sorts of things. My experience, and I've written a column for farmers for 15 years, and I've spoken to farmers all the time, it's their backyard. It's their livelihood. So they're more concerned about real issues. For example, I doubt that you know that a few years ago, the United Nations said the #1 environmental problem in the world is soil erosion. Not an urban issue.
We're not talking about that.
No, but the farmers have dealt with it.
Okay.
They've dealt with it and confronted it. Their children live in that environment. So the thing is, first of all, humans are entitled to be on the planet just as much as a beaver or whatever else. But we are also we've got to make a living. We've got to survive.
And so if that means exploiting, exploit.
Well, no, exploit you see is a loaded word.
Okay.
You use a loaded word. No, just using what is necessary to survive and improve life. Because you see, as I said earlier, okay, industrialized nations have created some problems. But why do all the countries in the world want to become industrialized? Because it makes longer life, better health, and improves life condition. There's just to give you a different way of thinking of things. Dennis Avery, who I've known for a long, long time, he says, okay, if you tell me that farming is compromised, that we've cut trees down to grow food, fine. we can increase the yield on that land by using chemicals in other ways. Then we don't have to cut any of your forests down or any of your other ecology down.
So you're saying maybe chemicals is a good way to go?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Pesticides, bring them on.
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, that's very counter to what...
Well, I know, but think about it in Africa. We're spending billions on AIDS, which is a lifestyle disease. Meanwhile, more people are dying of malaria. Why? Because they banned EDT. Why did they ban EDT? Because they said it's destroying birds' eggs. Well, there's no truth to that at all. That's simply scientific
Let's
rubbish.
bring back DDT, prevent malaria.
Prevent malaria, save hundreds of lives.
What gives you hope? As you think about what you're a climatologist, you think about these issues, what gives you hope?
Well, first of all, that the Earth is cooling down. The world's been cooling since 1998. The experts are predicting we'll be much cooler by 2030. And of course, that'll throw the baby, that'll throw the spanner in the thing right away. The sad part is, of course, we're preparing totally for warming when it's cooling.
Wow.
And so that'll change things around. What they'll do is they'll come out and say, well, our models were wrong because of soot and humans are blocking this and so on.
One last question, 30 seconds. If you could change one thing, what would you change in our planet?
Well, what I would do is I would try and get a better balance of information. Unfortunately, the media, which does a good job, has become very singular in its approach. And what we need is all of the information out there. We need to calm down. Right. And by the way, I have huge faith in the common sense of the ordinary people.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been great having you on.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We
could talk about this for till the next climate change occurs.
Okay. If you'd like more information about the Natural Resources Stewardship Project, you can check out their website, nrsp.com. We'll be right back.